Good morning, friends. Today we are going to learn about function arguments, and the first type is default argument. Now we shall learn default argument with a small example. Okay? Greet. So greet is a function which will have two parameters. One is name and there is message. Now I will print as hello, comma, name, comma, message. So this is my function definition. Now I can directly call this function. So calling function. Now how to call this function? By name. Name is, let us say, this, comma, message is good morning. So if you run this, you will get hello Jagdish, good morning. Can you see this? Now you will get output as hello Jagdish, good morning. Now there is a small concept in Python that if there are two parameters while you are defining your function, then you must call with two values. That means you should have two arguments. So these are called here name and message are called parameters, and Jagdish and good morning are called arguments. So the number of arguments and the number of parameters should be same. Now how many number of arguments are there here? So number of parameters are there here? 2. What are those? Name and message. Comma message. Now you are passing two values. What are those? Jagadish, comma, good morning. Now the rule is satisfied. That means the number of parameters and the number of arguments are same. Now how this function call is understand by Python. Now it will substitute name. So the Jagdish will be assigned to name and good morning will be assigned to message. So in this way the function call works. Now where this function default arguments will be helpful to us in Python. Now I am calling this greet function with same message. Let us say I'm changing name Krishna, comma, good morning. So you will get hello Jagdish, good morning. Hello Madhu, good morning. Hello Krishna, good morning. You can observe that the second argument is repeated for every function call, isn't it? Now, when there is a requirement that the arguments are repeated, you can make such arguments as default arguments. Now, in this case, message equal to good morning is repeated. Okay, got it? So I can make this message as default argument here itself. Now, when you made this message as default argument, then there is no need to call with two arguments. Only one argument is enough because the second argument is default. Still, you will get the same result. And the rule also doesn't changes. Even though you called with two arguments, sorry, single argument, actually it will Python will understand like this. Name is Jagdish and message equal to good morning. Here I have given the value for message while I am defining the function itself. So that's why when you are not mentioning about the second argument, okay, by default the second argument is good morning only. Okay, so that's why this function call will work. So the same output will come here. Hello Jagdish, good morning. Hello Madhu, good morning. And hello Krishna, good morning. Let us see this. Correct? No change. So this is a concept in Python and this concept is called default arguments. Okay? Now, what if I didn't pass any values to this function? Then it will throw error saying that one required positional argument name is missing because here Python knows that the second argument is good morning. So what about name? At least name should be passed. So if there are two parameters and one is a default argument and one is non-default, so the non-default should be called here. Okay, and the other is obviously the default one. So you at least one argument should be passed because one parameter is not known to us. We don't, if you don't mention about name, how can it substitute the value in name? It cannot. It can substitute message here because it knows that Python knows that message is good morning, so it can substitute, but it doesn't know what is the value of name. So name should be passed. That means only one default argument should be, one default argument is there, so other is non-default. So the non-default argument should be called while calling the function. Okay. So this is about default arguments. Now, if I change the parameters like this, message is good morning, comma, name here. Does it works? No, it will not works because non-default argument follows default argument. What is the meaning of this? If you pass default argument to the first parameter itself, so the remaining parameters should also be declared as default arguments. Now here you have to pass some value. Let us say Jagadish then it is correct. See, the errors are removed. If there are two parameters and the first parameter is declared as default argument, then the parameters which are followed by the first parameter, which is a default argument, should also be declared as default arguments. Okay, now okay, then now let us write a small function to know the default arguments, okay, in detail. Let us say I have a function called add, and I have four parameters. Let us say a comma b comma c comma d. Okay, now I have four parameters. What are those? A comma b comma c comma d. I'm returning with sum of all these values, a plus b plus c plus d. So my function completed. Now I can call like this, and here nothing is a default argument. So in this case I have to pass all the values. Let us say 10 comma 20 comma 30 comma 40. Why? Because in Python we have a rule that the number of parameters should match the number of values passed to it. Now it will assume that a equal to 10, b equal to 20, c equal to 40, and d equal to 60. Okay, sorry, c equal to 30. Sorry, I have passed now. Sorry, c equal to 30 and d equal to 40. Sorry. So here the values are substituted like this. 10 will be substituted to, so 10 will be substituted to a. So a will be having the value as 10. Second value is b. Here, what is the second parameter? B. And what is the value? 20. So b is 20. What is the third parameter? C. And what is the third value? 30. So c is 30. Now what is the fourth parameter? And what is the fourth value here? 40. So in this way they will be assigned. Okay, in this way they will be assigned. So now coming to the default arguments concept. If I passed d as, so okay, d as default argument, now when you call the function you can call with three values. Why? Because you already know the value of d here, so d will be substituted with 7. Okay, because there are, how many parameters are there? 4. And how many are default arguments? 1. So the remaining 3 should be called. Okay, remaining 3 should be called. Now the rule of Python is not violated here. How many parameters are there? A comma b comma c comma d. But you already passed the value of d as 7, so there is no need to call it again. Okay, now it will take d as 7 only, so the output will be 30 plus 30, 60, 60 plus 7, 67. So I will print this. 67. This is about default argument with one value. Let us say I have default arguments with two values. Let us say C is 6. Now, in this case, if somebody asks output based questions like this, you can simplify like this. Okay. Now, write A, comma B, comma C, comma D. Now, in A, comma B, comma C, comma D, what are known things here? I don't know the value of A, correct? Then you have to pass it. Do you know the value of B? No, you have to pass it. Do you know the value of C here? Yes, I know the value of C because I have declared the value of C as 6 while I am defining the function itself. So, what is the value of D here? 7. Now, how many known things are there? C, comma D. How many unknown things are there? 2. So, you have to pass at least with the 2 values because other two things are default. So it will substitute like this: A is equal to 34, B is equal to 67, and C is 6 and D is 7. How many parameters are there here? A, B, C, D. And how many values are there here? 4 only: 34, 67, 6 and 7. It will work like this. Okay. Now, what about a function call with 3 default values? Let us say 5. Now, what happens? Now, do you know the value of A here? Wait. Okay. Do you know the value of A here? No. I didn't mention anything about A. So, you have to pass the value. Any value you want to use. Do you know the value of B? Yes, I know the value of B as 5. What is the value of C? 6. I know it. What is the value of D here? 7. I know it. So how many known things are there? B, C, D are already known to Python as B is 5, C is 6 and D is 7. Now what is unknown thing here? A. So you have to pass at least with one value itself. That's all. Other values are substituted because they are default arguments. Okay. Now what happens with all the values are default arguments? Let us say. Now same procedure. Write A, comma B, comma C, comma D values and fill it. Now do you know the value of A here? Yes, I know it. Do you know the value of B here? Yes, I know. Do you know the value of C here? Yes. Do you know the value of D here? Yes. So there is no need to call with any value because all the values are given already in the function definition itself. So even though if you don't pass any value, it will work because everything is a default argument. So what is the value of 3 plus 5, 8, 8 plus 6, 14, 14 plus 7, 21. 21 is the answer. Like this. Now problem comes. If I pass with the 67, now tell me the output. think it again and tell me the output. Now, what happens if you passed with a single value? Then it will assume that A is 67. And did you mention about other three parameters? No. So, and other three parameters are already default. So, it will assume the same values given by you as default. So, the value of this is 67 plus 5 is 72, 72 plus 6, 78, 78 plus 7, 85. Now the value is 85. Got it? Now you can change all the values, or you can change your own values. Let us say if you change until two values, then it will assume that A is equal to 67 and B is 45, and the remaining C and D are already default arguments. So it will assume C and D as 6 and 7 itself, and you can change all the values. Let us say 60, 70. Now all the values will be changed. Got it? Now we shall discuss about the syntax of this function call. If you passed in there are four parameters here. What are those? A, B, C and D. If you give the first parameter as default argument, you have given some value, let us say A is equal to 3, then you must fill B and C and D also. Okay, so this function call is valid because here I have the value of A is 3, so you have to fill B, C, D also. Now this is case 1. Now if you start like okay, what happens if you do not mention the value of A and you start giving from B? Then after B, what are the values? What are the parameters? C and D. So C and D also should be filled. Okay, if B is given, that means the parameters which are followed by B, what are those? C and D. That parameters also should be declared as default arguments. Okay. Now if you start giving from C, that means the parameters which are followed by C also should be declared as default arguments. That is, if C is given some value, so you have to pass D also. Let us remove this and try to call this. Okay, can you see the error? Okay, so syntactically it is wrong. Okay, 45, 56, 7. Okay, so if I call like this, print add of, you will get error. Why? Because non-default argument always follows default argument. That means What is the non-default argument after the default argument? D. So non-default parameter follows default parameter. So this is non-default parameter and this is default parameter. So non-default parameter also should be passed with some value, then it is correct. Okay, now this is the topic of default arguments, and the next video is about positional arguments. Okay, bye children.